The ion storm painted Outpost Epsilon, 12 in electric blue streaks, the kind of weather that kept sensible folk indoors. June, Asher was many things, but sensible had never been one of them. His weathered exosuit's joints creaked with each step as he trudged through knee-deep metallic debris, scanner whirring in his gloved hand. "Ping me again, Bucket," he muttered to the modified service droid hovering by his shoulder. The small, battered machine chirped in acknowledgement, its single optical sensor pulsing. Anomalous energy signature remains constant, June. 700 meters northwest. Probability of valuable salvage, moderate to high. June adjusted his hood against the howling wind. Epsilon, 12 sat on the edge of regulated space. Perfect for people who preferred asking forgiveness to permission. His repair shop, Last Chance Mechanics, took the jobs no corporate technician would touch. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept him independent. The scanner squealed suddenly, causing him to wince. What in the void? The ground shook beneath his boots as something massive tore through the storm clouds above. Trailing plasma fire, the ship, if you could still call the mangled heap of metal a ship, carved a blazing path before slamming into the rocky outcroppings half a kilometer away. Bucket, emergency protocols. Alert medical. June paused, then shook his head. Cancel that. No authorities. Curiosity and caution warred within him as he approached the crash site. The vessel's design was unmistakable. Sleek predatory lines, iridescent black hull material that absorbed rather than reflected light. Cathari engineering. The warrior species rarely ventured this far into human territory, especially not alone. Life signs, he whispered. Bucket's skin took 3 seconds. 1 occupant. Critical condition. June found the emergency release and forced open what remained of the cockpit. Inside, slumped over the controls, was a Cathari female. Blood the color of liquid mercury leaked from multiple wounds, pooling beneath her seat. Her exoskeleton armor was cracked in several places, revealing scaled skin beneath. The alien's eyes snapped open, vertical pupils contracting in eyes the color of burnished copper. With startling speed, she seized June's wrist, claws digging into the exosuit fabric. Kezrai Clan Cathari, the alien rasped in heavily accented standard. Kill me honorably or leave me to die alone. Not much for options, are you? June replied, already assessing the damage to both ship and pilot. I'm a mechanic, not an executioner. The Cathari warrior Kezrai coughed, more mercury blood spattering her mandibles. Then you are a fool. Helios Syndicate will pay, bounty. For my head. June froze. The Helios Syndicate controlled half the trade routes in this sector. Crossing them was suicide. The smart play was walking away, or better yet, making an anonymous call to collect the bounty himself. Instead, he found himself cutting through the safety harness with his plasma torch. Bucket, prep the cargo hauler. We need to move this wreckage before the storm clears. Kezrai's eyes narrowed. Why help enemy? First, I don't remember declaring war on you personally. June grunted as he worked. Second, anyone the Syndicate wants dead badly enough to put a bounty on can't be all bad. As June maneuvered the unconscious Cathari onto his hauler, he noticed the ship's cargo hold had been forcibly breached. Inside was nothing but scorched emptiness. Whatever Kezrai had been transporting was gone. 3 hours later, in the hidden basement beneath his shop, June finished administering emergency medical treatment. The Cathari's physiology was different, but similar enough to use modified human supplies. Above, he could hear port authorities making their rounds, searching for the crashed ship that had mysteriously disappeared. When Kezrai finally regained consciousness, her first action was to reach for a weapon that wasn't there. June pushed a cup of synthesized protein broth toward her instead. Your ship's hidden, what's left of it anyway? You've got 3 cracked ribs, or whatever passes for ribs in your species. Internal bleeding I've temporarily patched, and enough sedatives in your system to drop a cargo lifter. Kezrai stared at him with those unnerving copper eyes. You know what I am. What they'll do to you if found. Yeah. June ran a hand through his short, grease-stained hair. Guess I just made a really stupid decision. Or brave one. Kezrai responded, mandibles clicking softly. My clan, all dead. Ship destroyed. Mission failed. June studied the damaged console he'd salvaged from the wreckage. Tell you what, I fixed ships nobody else will touch. Yours is definitely in that category. He extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. You tell me why half your ship is weapons-grade material, why the Syndicate wants you dead, and I'll help you put this bird back together. After a long moment, Kezrai's clawed hand clasped June's. Deal, human mechanic. But know this, helping me means sharing my fate. And my fate is vengeance. June smiled grimly. Funny thing about that. Vengeance and I are already well acquainted. Outside, the ion storm began to clear, revealing the first stars of evening. Neither of them knew it yet, but those stars would soon witness a reckoning years in the making. 2 weeks had passed since June pulled Kezrai from the wreckage. The Katheri warrior had healed with remarkable speed, now moving with only the slightest favoring of her left side where 3 reinforced plates of her exoskeleton were still fusing back together. That coupling won't hold under quantum stress, Kezrai noted, looming over June's shoulder as he worked on the ship's damaged drive core. June wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of grease. It would if you'd stop breathing down my neck. Your people build ships like death traps, all weapons, minimal redundancies. Katheri do not retreat. No need for backup systems. Yeah, well, that philosophy nearly got you killed. June slid out from under the console. Hand me the phase inverter. Kezrai hesitated before selecting the correct tool from June's organized array. After 2 weeks, she was learning human technology, grudgingly. You still haven't told me what you were carrying that got the syndicate so riled up, June said casually, though his eyes remained focused on his work. The workshop fell silent except for the hum of diagnostic equipment. June had moved the ship piece by piece into his hidden hangar beneath the shop, accessible only through a freight elevator disguised as defective. Project Nemesis, Kezrai finally said, mandibles clicking softly. Plans for a weapon. One that could destabilize jump points, collapse travel networks. June's hand stilled. That's impossible. Jump points are fixed quantum anomalies. Not fixed. Malleable with correct frequency. Kezrai's copper eyes reflected the blue glow of the work lights. My clan was scientific caste before warrior. We discover much your kind is not. And the syndicate wanted this weapon. They approached clan leaders. Offered alliance. Kezrai's voice hardened. We refused. They came anyway, 30 ships against our research vessel. Took plans. Killed all but me. June set down his tools and looked directly at Kezrai. Why were you spared? Not spared. Escaped. Was in maintenance shaft when attack began. Something like shame flashed across the alien's features. Should have died with crew. So you're going after the entire Helios syndicate with one ship? June couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. That's not vengeance, that's suicide. Honor demands no less. Kezrai straightened to her full height, nearly 7 feet of armored killing machine. What would human know of such things? June stood, anger flashing in his eyes. More than you think. 5 years ago, I was chief engineer on the Artemis mining colony. When we found rich platinum deposits, Helios subsidiary companies claimed operational hazards and evacuated us. My partner stayed behind with the protesters. He pulled up his sleeve, revealing a complex pattern of scars from his wrist to elbow. I went back when communication stopped. Found the colony accidentally vented to space. 87 people, including Marcus, all for a mining claim. Kezrai tilted her head, studying June with new intensity. You seek vengeance also. I've been planning it longer than you have, June replied, turning back to the ship. But I'm not stupid enough to fly into their headquarters guns blazing. For hours they worked in silence, June methodically integrating salvage systems into the Katheri vessel. Human cooling systems paired with alien power cells. Epsilon 12's black market provided the parts they couldn't fabricate. As night fell, Kezrai watched June precision weld a critical joint in the ship's hull. Your hands are steady, the Katheri observed. Among my people, such skill would earn high status. June snorted. Out here, it earns enough credits to keep eating. Yet you risk this existence to help enemy. Are you my enemy, Kezrai? June set down his tools and handed the warrior a container of nutrient paste formulated for her physiology. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, Kezrai's scaled skin cool against June's calloused palm. The contact lingered a moment longer than necessary. No, Kezrai finally answered. Not enemy. That night, as they sat reviewing schematics, June noticed Kezrai performing a strange ritual tracing patterns on a small metal disc. Memory stone, Kezrai explained when she caught June watching. Contains essence of fallen clan members. We believe spirits travel among stars after death. June nodded toward the stars visible through the workshop skylight. Marcus used to say something similar. That when we die, our energy just changes form. Kezrai extended the disc. Would you honor Marcus's memory in Katheri way? Surprise flickered across June's face as he accepted the offering. The metal felt warm, almost alive under his fingertips. Trace spiral pattern, Kezrai instructed, her voice softer than June had ever heard it. While speaking name, June's finger followed the etched lines. Marcus Rodriguez, he whispered, startled by the disk's faint illumination at his words. When he returned the stone, Kezrai's clawed fingers enclosed around his. Now our vengeance is shared. My clan's spirits recognize your loss. Something shifted between them in that moment, from reluctant alliance to something deeper, a connection forged through shared grief and purpose. Later, as June fell asleep on his workshop cot, Kezrai standing guard nearby, the human mechanic realized he'd made his decision weeks ago. The ship wouldn't just be repaired, it would be transformed into something neither human nor Cathari engineers had ever conceived. A weapon of vengeance, born from the fusion of two worlds. The explosion shook Outpost Epsilon, 12 to its foundations. June jolted awake, rolling instinctively toward his blaster. Kezrai was already moving, her silhouette lethal and precise in the emergency lighting. They found us, the Cathari warrior stated, voice unnervingly calm. June checked the security feeds. 3 ships. Military grade. Not Port Authority. He grabbed his emergency pack. How? We've been careful. Quantum residue from my ship's drive. Distinctive Cathari signature. Kezrai's copper eyes narrowed. Should have masked it sooner. The next explosion was closer, punching through the outpost's thin atmospheric shield. Alarms blared as emergency protocols engaged. Ship's not ready, June muttered, mentally calculating their chances. The vessel could fly, barely, but weapon systems were minimal and shields unreliable. We need 10 more days. We have 10 minutes. Kezrai strode to a storage locker, extracting a wicked-looking rifle of Cathari design. She tossed June a smaller version. You know weapons? June checked the charge. I can handle myself. They moved in tandem to the concealed hangar. Outside, the sounds of destruction grew closer. The syndicate wasn't being subtle. They were leveling everything in their path. Bucket, June called to his droid. Initiate Protocol Omega. The small machine chirped acknowledgement, its single eye pulsing red as it interfaced with the workshop systems. Throughout the building, explosives June had installed years ago, insurance he'd hoped never to cash in, armed themselves. What allies will die for your escape? Kezrai asked, a question loaded with cultural significance. No one. Evacuated the neighboring shops when you arrived. June's hands flew over the ship's activation sequence. Never trust easily, never endanger others. 2 rules I live by. Yet you trust me. June paused, looking up into those alien eyes that had somehow become familiar. Yeah. Funny that. The ship, which they'd taken to calling Nemesis in grim acknowledgement of its purpose, hummed to life. Its hybrid systems glowed with the strange beauty of incompatible technologies forced into harmony. Bucket detached from the workshop interface, rolling toward them quickly. Hostiles breaching outer perimeter. 90 seconds to direct contact. June secured the droid and finished the launch sequence. Kezrai, we need a gunner. The Cathari warrior took position at the modified weapons station without hesitation. Her movements were fluid despite her still healing injuries, clawed fingers dancing across the hybrid controls with growing confidence. The hangar's concealed ceiling began to retract, revealing the chaos above. 3 syndicate vessels hovered over the outpost, raining destruction. Their sleek, corporate designs belied their military capabilities. These weren't mere enforcers but elite hunters. Silent running until we clear atmosphere, June instructed, easing the ship upward. The Nemesis rose like a ghost, its engines muffled by June's custom baffles. For a moment, it seemed they might slip away unnoticed. Then a proximity alert blared. Scanning beam, Kezrai hissed. They found us. The first volley of enemy fire sizzled past their port side. June banked hard, throwing the ship into a spiraling ascent that strained its half-repaired systems. Controls responding 40% below optimal, he shouted over the groaning hull. Kezrai, I need cover. The Cathari's response was immediate and devastating. The weapon system, a hybrid of Cathari targeting precision and human adaptability, unleashed a barrage that caught the nearest syndicate ship off guard. Its shields flickered, vulnerable for just a moment. Kezrai didn't hesitate. A second burst tore through the weakened defense, shearing off the vessel's starboard engine. It veered wildly before beginning a terminal descent toward the outpost below. One down, Kezrai announced, satisfaction evident in her voice. June couldn't match the warrior's calm. His hands trembled slightly as he pushed the Nemesis harder, the ship shuddering around them. 2 more. and were not exactly in fighting shape. A direct hit rocked their ship, sending June slamming against his restraints. Pain exploded across his shoulder as something dislocated. He bit back a cry, forcing himself to maintain course with his good arm. Kezrai noticed immediately. In a move that defied the intensity of the moment, she reached across the cockpit, gripped June's shoulder, and with one precise movement, snapped the joint back into place. June's scream was short-lived, fading to ragged breathing as relief flooded through the initial agony. "Thanks," he gasped. "Kothari field medicine," Kezrai replied, already back at her weapons station. "Pain is temporary. Death is not." They broke atmosphere with 2 Syndicate ships in close pursuit. June activated the quantum drive prematurely, a desperate gamble. The Nemesis shuddered violently as space-time bent around its hull. "Drive stability critical," Bucket warned, its synthesized voice crackling with static. "Structural integrity compromised in aft sections." June met Kezrai's gaze across the cockpit. For the first time, he saw something like fear in those alien eyes. Not for herself, but for June. "I cannot lose another clan," Kezrai said softly, the admission barely audible over the ship's protesting systems. The words hit June harder than the Syndicate's weapons. Before he could respond, the quantum drive engaged fully, hurling them across space in a blur of compressed reality. When they emerged, the pursuing ships were gone, but so was half their rear shielding and most of their life support reserves. The Nemesis drifted, wounded and vulnerable, in an unclaimed sector far from civilized space. June unbuckled his restraints with shaking hands and crossed to Kezrai's station. Without a word, he pressed his forehead against the Kotharis, an intimate gesture among the warrior species that he'd observed Kezrai perform in private moments of reflection. "We're alive," June whispered. "And while we're alive, we fight." Kezrai's scaled hand rose to cup June's face, claws retracted in a display of trust that spoke volumes. Together, the warrior agreed. As emergency systems bathed them in pulsing red light, human and Kothari held each other's gaze, survivors, fugitives, and now, undeniably, something more than reluctant allies. "You trust these humans?" Kezrai's mandibles clicked with skepticism as the Nemesis drifted toward the asteroid facility barely visible against the starscape. June finished bandaging his arm, the fabric tight around the burn he'd received while repairing the life support system. "Trust is a strong word. Let's say we have mutually beneficial history." The facility, known as Undertow to those who operated beyond regulation, was carved directly into an iron-rich asteroid at the edge of the Virgus Belt. No official charts marked its existence, no beacons guided visitors. Only the desperate or well-connected knew of its presence. Approaching docking vector, Bucket announced from its interface port. Receiving encrypted handshake protocols. June limped to the console, inputting a complex sequence from memory. Identifying as Juniper Asher. Authorization code Epsilon 7 Tango. A tense minute passed before the response came. "June? Thought you were dead, Ace. Bringing trouble? Don't I always, Elias?" He activated the visual feed, revealing a dark-skinned man with a cybernetic eye implant. "Need repairs and information." Elias whistled as he took in the ship's unique configuration. "That's Kothari tech merged with. Is that a Meridian flux modulator? You're either brilliant or suicidal." "Both," June admitted. "Docking clearance. Bay 4. Keep your friend calm." "Some folks here have history with the Kothari." Kezrai moved into view of the feed, her copper eyes unblinking. "Some Kothari have history with your kind as well, human. I will maintain peace if you do the same." Elias's cybernetic eye word as it focused. "Understood. Welcome to Undertow, warrior." The docking was tense but uneventful. June had spent the approach briefing Kezrai on Undertow's strange blend of outlaws, exiles, and fringe scientists, all united by their opposition to corporate hegemony. As they disembarked, June was struck by how naturally he and Kezrai moved together now, anticipating each other's movements, covering blind spots. 3 weeks of constant proximity had forged an unspoken language between them. Elias greeted them in the airlock, flanked by security drones. His real eye widened at Kezrai's imposing presence. The Syndicate's been broadcasting bounties on a Kothari fugitive, offering enough credits to buy a moon. They want these. June produced a data chip from his pocket. Partial schematics for Project Nemesis. Been working on replicating what Kezrai remembers. Elias's expression turned grave. Inside, Now, the facility's interior hummed with illegal commerce and technological innovation. Humans mingled with various alien species, though notably, no other Katheri. Many stopped to stare as their unusual pair passed, conversations hushing before erupting into whispers. Elias led them to a secure room deep in the asteroid's core, sealed with multiple authentication layers. Inside waited 3 others, a Vespian engineer with translucent skin revealing complex internal organs, a human woman with extensive military-grade augmentations, and an older man whose weathered face spoke of hard-earned wisdom. "My counsel," Elias explained. "Meet Talek, Meredith, and Dr. Albin." "If that data is what we think it is," Meredith said without preamble, "you've painted targets on all our backs." Kezrai stepped forward. "Katheri do not seek to endanger allies. We seek justice." "Justice doesn't exist out here," Dr. Albin replied, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Only power and those who wield it." June placed the data chip on the table. "The Syndicate already has the complete weapon specs. What we have is fragments, enough to understand it, not enough to build it. What we need," Kezrai continued, "is location of their research facility, where they developed the weapon." Talek's translucent fingers manipulated a holographic display. "Syndicate has 7 potential research sites, each shielded, defended, impossible to search all." For hours, they planned, argued, and strategized. The Nemesis would need significant repairs before any assault could be attempted. Undertow had resources, but time was their enemy. The longer they waited, the closer the Syndicate came to weaponizing Project Nemesis. Later, in their assigned quarters, June collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion finally claiming him. Kezrai stood by the viewport, the starred void reflecting in her copper eyes. "You should rest," June murmured. "Even Katheri warriors need sleep. My people require less than humans." Still, Kezrai moved from the window, settling beside June with unexpected grace for her armored form. "You fought well today, with words instead of weapons." June smiled faintly. "Not all battles are won with firepower. Yet final battle will be." Kezrai's voice dropped lower. "Many may die, including us." The admission hung between them, the first time either had verbalized the likely outcome of their vendetta. "I made peace with dying the day I found Marcus's body," June said softly. "Just wanted it to mean something." Kezrai's scaled hand found June's in the dimness. "Katheri believe worthy death brings honor to clan. Your Marcus would be proud of warrior you've become." June turned to face his companion, struck by how the starlight transformed Kezrai's fearsome features into something almost beautiful. "What about you? What does Kezrai want beyond vengeance?" The Katheri was silent for a long moment. Then, with deliberate care, she removed the ceremonial armor plates from her upper body, a gesture of vulnerability no warrior made lightly. Beneath was iridescent scaled skin patterned with ritual scars and bioluminescent markings that pulsed gently with her heartbeat. "Katheri warriors are taught to want nothing," she finally answered. "To desire is to be weak. Yet I find myself wanting." The word carried weight beyond its simplicity. June reached out, hesitating just above the glowing patterns on Kezrai's shoulder. "May I?" Kezrai nodded once, a sharp jerk of her head that couldn't disguise the tremor running through her powerful frame. June's fingers traced the living light beneath Kezrai's scales, marveling at the warmth and life beneath the warrior's fearsome exterior. The markings brightened at his touch, responding to the contact. "Beautiful," June whispered. "Bond markings," Kezrai explained, her voice unusually rough. "Show emotional state. Cannot lie when touched." Understanding dawned. "And what are they telling me now?" Instead of answering, Kezrai leaned forward, pressing her forehead to June's in the Katheri gesture of deepest connection. But this time, she continued the movement, her mouth, so different from a human's yet somehow perfect, finding June's in a kiss that transcended species. The contact was electric, alien yet undeniably right. June's hands found the sensitive ridges along Kezrai's spine, eliciting a sound somewhere between purr and growl. "If we die tomorrow," Kezrai breathed against June's neck, "we die as clan. As one." Under the light of distant stars, mechanic and warrior discovered new territory neither had mapped before. The unexpected intimacy between species never meant to understand each other, yet somehow finding perfection in their differences. Morning would bring battle plans and the weight of their mission. But this night belonged to them alone, a stolen moment of connection before the coming storm. Approaching Syndicate Research Facility, Bucket announced, its synthetic voice unnaturally calm amid the tension thrumming through the Nemesis's cockpit. The station hung in orbit around a nondescript gas giant, outwardly a standard corporate research platform. Only its exceptional defensive grid betrayed its true significance. June's hands were steady on the controls despite the fear coiling in his stomach. The past 3 days at Undertow had transformed the Nemesis into something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of Kathuri offensive capabilities and human adaptability, enhanced by technology provided by Elias's resistance network. Beside him, Kezrai stood resplendent in full battle regalia, her exoskeleton armor polished to a lethal shine. The bioluminescent markings visible at her neck and wrists pulsed with controlled aggression. "Remember the plan," June said, more to himself than anyone else. "We broadcast the evidence of Project Nemesis to every system in range, then destroy their prototype." Meredith's voice crackled through the comms. "Strike team in position. Awaiting your signal." 2 ships from Undertow, unmarked and heavily armed, had accompanied them, carrying fighters willing to risk everything against the Syndicate. Not out of loyalty to June or Kezrai, but because a weapon that could collapse jump points threatened everyone, corporate and outlaw alike. Activating stealth systems, June announced, engaging the hybrid cloaking technology they'd perfected. The Nemesis vanished from conventional sensors, its energy signature masked by experimental dampeners. They approached the blind spot Talek had identified in the station's defensive grid, a maintenance access point where sensors overlapped imperfectly. "We'll have 30 seconds once we breach before automated systems detect the hull violation," June reminded Kezrai. "Ready?" The Katheri warrior's copper eyes met his, intense and unwavering. "Always ready with you, Jyn Asher." The words carried layers of meaning that made June's heart constrict. These past weeks had transformed them both, the solitary mechanic and the honor-bound warrior finding in each other something neither had known they needed. "Bucket, you have bridge control. Emergency protocols if we don't return in 40 minutes. The droid chirped acknowledgement as June rose from the pilot's seat. He checked his weapons, a human blaster modified with Katheri energy cells, capable of punching through reinforced barriers. As they moved to the airlock, Kezrai suddenly pulled June close, pressing their foreheads together in the gesture that had become their ritual. "Remember Katheri death oath," she said softly. "If I fall, you continue. Complete mission." June swallowed hard. "Same goes for me. But let's try the nobody dies option first." The breach was precise and silent. One moment they were sealed in the Nemesis's airlock. The next, they were inside the station's maintenance shaft, gravity plates pulling them gently to the floor. "Transmitter to server level. Weapon prototype in central lab," Kezrai whispered, consulting the station schematics they'd memorized. They moved as one entity, human and Katheri, covering each other through the station's service corridors. 2 security drones fell to Kezrai's silent blade before they could transmit alerts. The station's central server hub was remarkably unguarded, a testament to the Syndicate's confidence in their external defenses. June worked quickly, installing the modified transmitter that would broadcast evidence of Project Nemesis throughout the sector. "Upload initiated," he confirmed. 10 minutes until complete transmission. A distant alarm began to wail. "Not us," Kezrai assessed, head tilted. "Diversion." Meredith's team had begun their assault on the station's primary docking bay, drawing security forces away from the central laboratory. The plan was working. Until it wasn't. They were 3 corridors from the lab when the trap sprung. Barrier shields slammed down, isolating the section. Gas began pouring from concealed vents. "They knew we were coming," June realized, scrambling for his emergency breather. Beside him, Kezrai's exoskeleton sealed automatically, internal filters engaging. Through the thickening gas emerged a figure June had seen only in intelligence briefings. Director Vance, the Syndicate's head of special projects. Behind him stood 6 enhanced security operatives, their weapons trained steadily. "The infamous Katheri survivor and her human pet," Vance remarked, his augmented voice unnaturally pleasant. "You've been quite troublesome." Kezrai snarled, her posture shifting to attack stance. June placed a restraining hand on her arm. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "Project Nemesis will never reach completion," June stated, buying time as he surreptitiously activated the secondary transmitter hidden in his boot. "The entire sector now knows what you're building." Vance smiled thinly. "You think information alone changes anything? Corporations build weapons because power demands it." The Katheri refused to understand this reality. Katheri understood too well. Kezrai replied, her voice deadly calm. My people died protecting Galaxy from your ambition. Your people died because they were obsolete, Vance countered. As are both of you. He nodded to his security team. Kill them. Recover any technology from their ship. What happened next occurred with such speed that later, June would struggle to reconstruct the sequence. Kezrai moved like liquid death, her body flowing around enemy fire as she closed distance to the nearest guards. June dropped to one knee, firing precise shots that found gaps in security armor. The battle was brutal and swift. Kezrai's claws tore through reinforced combat gear while June's modified weapons overloaded personal shields. But Vance had not risen to his position without resources. As the last guard fell, he activated his own combat system, an exoskeleton that rivaled Kezrai's natural armor. Stolen technology, Kezrai hissed, recognizing Katheri design elements. Desecration of my people's work. Vance smiled. Nearly. Repurposed. He moved with augmented speed, catching even Kezrai off guard. His reinforced fist connected with her midsection, cracking one of her healing plates. She staggered back, momentarily vulnerable. June threw himself forward, interposing his body before Vance could land a killing blow. The impact sent him flying into a control panel, pain exploding across his ribs. June. Kezrai's roar contained something June had never heard before, raw fear. The sound ignited something primal in June. Despite the agony, he reached for his fallen weapon, fingers closing around the grip as Vance advanced on Kezrai. Your kind never understood the future belongs to those who shape it, Vance was saying, his augmented strength matching Kezrai's natural power as they grappled. The Syndicate shapes the future. No, June gasped, raising his blaster. We do. His shot caught Vance's exoskeleton at its power junction, the weakness he'd identified because he'd spent weeks repairing similar technology. The suit faltered, its movements suddenly jerky and uncoordinated. Kezrai didn't waste the opening. With ceremonial precision, she drove her combat blade through the gap June's shot had created. Vance's eyes widened in shock as the blade found his heart. For my clan, Kezrai intoned. For the Katheri. And for Marcus, June added softly. Together, they staggered toward the laboratory, the station now in chaos as Meredith's team pushed deeper into the facility. The prototype for Project Nemesis stood on a central pedestal, smaller than June had imagined for something so devastating. Working together, they rigged it for destruction, along with the laboratory's backup data course. As they finished, June's communicator chirped. Transmission complete, Bucket announced. All sectors received data packet. Syndicate security vessels incoming. They had minutes before they'd be trapped. June looked at Kezrai, both of them bloodied but unbowed. Ready to fly one last time? He asked. Kezrai's copper eyes gleamed. With you? Always. The Nemesis was waiting where they'd left it, Bucket already warming the engines. As they limped aboard, explosions began rippling through the station behind them. June threw himself into the pilot's seat, hands flying over the controls he now knew as intimately as his own heartbeat. The ship, their ship, responded like an extension of himself. Multiple pursuit vessels detected, Bucket warned. Let them come, Kezrai said from the weapons station, her voice serene despite their desperate situation. We have shown our teeth. Now we show our wings. The Nemesis screamed away from the disintegrating station, its hybrid engines pushing performance beyond what either human or Katheri engineers would have thought possible. Behind them, Project Nemesis detonated, the explosion consuming the evidence of the Syndicate's crimes. As they prepared for the jump to safety, June felt Kezrai's hand close over his on the control yoke. Where shall we go? The warrior asked, something new in her voice, hope. June looked at his partner, this magnificent being from another world who had somehow become his world. Anywhere. Everywhere. The stars are waiting. The Nemesis vanished into quantum space, leaving behind chaos and the beginning of the Syndicate's downfall. The evidence they'd broadcast would ensure corporate accountability and justice for both the Katheri clan and the Artemis colonists. But more than vengeance, they had found something neither had been looking for. A future together, forged in steel and stardust, stretching endlessly before them among the infinite stars.